Omdahl show. This is episode 1099, and we are here live in Southwest Florida in my studio inside my RV where I live and work full-time with my sweet kitty, baby Bjorn. If you are joining me live, please say hello. Let me know if you're crafting this morning. Let me know if you have questions. We're going to try something different today. I brought out this If you're joining me live, please say hello, and then I'll wait for people to pop over from pre-chat notifications and explain what this is and what we're going to try to attempt to do today. Hi Judy, good morning. Happy Thursday everybody, aka Happy Friday Eve. Hi Edna and Judy, Thea, Chantel, good morning. Hi Julie and Sharon. Hi Joan and Anne. Good morning. Hi Judy and wow, so many people here so far. Great. Does anybody know what this is? I get excited to start, but I try to hold off to let people pop over from pre-chat and notifications. Hi Val and Avis, good morning. Hi Nancy and Joanne. Yes, it is a tripod that holds my phone for when I record the overhead shot versions of my tutorial videos. That's right, everybody. And for those of you that might be interested in it, you can find it in my Amazon shop. I do not recall what it is, but I do have one of the subsections in my Amazon shop has information on different camera and recording equipment that I use for making tutorial videos and things like that, and photography. So yeah, everybody knew already. So what I'd like to do, I know my phone gets a little weird in the YouTube app about how it gets moved. Like, remember in that other handheld? Oh, we have a visitor in that other handheld. Hi, baby. In that other handheld tripod. Remember how my phone gets weird in there sometimes? Well, I'm going to try to delicately put it in here and see if we can do an overhead shot so I can show you some different techniques today. Oh, after we say hi to baby Bjorn. Hi, Kat. Hi, Angela. Hi, Sherry. Gotta say hi to Bjorn first. Hi, Melanie. You want down? You want to supervise? I think he wants to supervise today. So I released a new hat the other day. It is the Nightingale Knit Hat that is so super easy to make and so squishy and soft. I have to say, I think number 6 super bulky weight yarn is my favorite weight to knit with right now. I go back and forth. You know, sometimes I love worsted weight. Sometimes I like doing things lacier. But sometimes there's nothing like a number 6 bulky weight yarn to make super cozy and quick projects. And this hat is no exception. This hat took me, I know I'm fast, but this hat took me about an hour to make. Like, that's just crazy. And even though it looks like it has cables, this is not a cable. It is a faux cable or a mock cable. It's a really cool technique that looks like a cable, but it isn't. Probably gonna mess up my hair trying it on, but I'll try it on anyway. What the heck? So I've got a bun on my head, so that's what's giving it a weird shape. But can you see how cozy and cute it is and how stretchy? Oh, it is so soft. So the yarn that has been inspiring all of this number 6 bulky weight projects lately is Lion Brand Respun Thick and Quick, which is 100% polyester, recycled polyester, and it's surprisingly super soft, and it has like a bit of a halo to it, kind of like it has animal products in it, like an alpaca or a wool, but it doesn't, which I thought was kind of cool. And I have bought so much of this. I have a bag with like probably 10 colors, and one ball makes a lot of stuff, so it's fun. Anyway, today what I thought I'd show you is that this hat is knit in the round, which means you can knit it in the round in a variety of ways. Now, you can convert in the round patterns to working in rows. That's a little more work. I want to show you that there are 3 simple ways to knit in the round to make this hat, and I'm using all really basic knitting tools that you can find in my Amazon shop, I'm going to be using a set of 16-inch circulars. You can find the yarn on Lion Brand's website, and I've got a link for it right here. I think this will work. And the video description will be uploaded with all of this too. Oh, Judy beat me to it. Okay. All right. So we're going to use 16-inch circulars. If you want to make hats, getting a set of 16-inch circulars is a great idea for making hats and cowls and stuff like that. You always want your circular, if you're working even in the round like this, if you always want a circular that is smaller than the circumference you're making. I'm making a 20-inch hat, so a 16-inch circular is perfect for that. I have a whole set of these from, I think, a size 3 through a size 3 millimeter through 10 millimeter, which means I can make a hat in any weight yarn, which I love this. Then you could also work on double point needles. Double point needles come in a set of 5. Uh-oh, baby Bjorn sat on our 5th one. I gotta sneak it out from under his belly. Hold on. I think. Is it under you, honey? Yes, it is. You poor baby. Here's my 5th one. So it comes with a set of 5 needles, which means you can either position your stitches around 4 needles and knit with the 5th, or you can position them around 3 and knit with the 4th. Both are totally possible, and I have 5, so I'm casting on 40 stitches, so it made sense to me to separate those onto 4 needles to be even. Then you can also do a technique called magic loop, which is really cool for a couple of reasons, being that if you only wanted to get one set of knitting needles, if you're new to knitting and you don't want to get double points, you don't want to get 16s and 24s and 32s, you can get a set of 47-inch circulars or longer. These are 47 inches long, and then you can knit big things on it. And if you know magic loop technique, you can knit small things on it too. See how by stretching the cord to either side? That's a great question, Crazed Vintage Model. I'm going to answer that in a minute. By separating the stitches and putting room between the front and back of this, or each half of the stitches with the cord, you're able to knit smaller circumferences and use those cords to ease your way around. Really cool. And we can go through all of these techniques, and I'll knit a couple of rounds in each one for you. Assuming we have time. I will also be doing a tutorial video on all of this as well. And there is a pattern. You can find the pattern on my website. So, Crazed Vintage Model asked, why is 16-inch better for hats than 20? That is a wonderful question. Those of you that have tried before will know exactly what, will know the answer. Oh, like all I have to do, when I think about knitting in the round on a needle that's too big, a circular that's too big for the number of stitches, it is torture, because what happens is your stitches have to spread around so much that you literally can't get them all the way around. Imagine if, okay, so let's say you've got 40 stitches and they fit on here. Imagine trying to fit those 40 stitches on a circle this big. It's going to put so much space between them that not only are you going to be having to pull and fight with your yarn, but you also run the risk of damaging it too, and also really distorting your stitches. So it's not fun. It's near impossible to do. Sometimes it is impossible to do, and it's so stressful. So once you do it and you know that it's miserable, you pick the right size needle. And if you don't have the right size needle, there are other options. You could even knit flat in rows if you wanted to, and then sew up your hat in the end. Some stitch patterns work well for that. Bunching up is way better than stretching out. Yes, Vintage Model. Yes. Or Crazed Vintage Model. Yes, having the stitches close together is, and again, if you're using the right size circular, let's say you're making a body. Let's say I'm doing a 36-inch circumference. Doing that on a 16 would be too much bunching. So there are sizes for everything. That's why there are so many lengths in circular knitting needles as well, because there are different sizes for making things. But in general, Squished up stitches instead of stretched out stitches is way more preferable when knitting in the round. Yes, you can do 2 circulars in the same size. Yes. That's not it. You can get the hang of that too. It's not much of a pain once you get used to it. And none of these are a pain once you get used to them. It's not that I forgot. I know of knitting with 2 and I've done it. I just focused on these 3 techniques for today. You're welcome, Crazed Vintage Model. It's a great question, and you're right. It's not intuitive. You wouldn't know. How would you know this stuff? Silver Zairn, great question. It depends on the manufacturer. Sometimes the 16 inches are from tip to tip, and sometimes it's cord length. You want to read the manufacturer's information on their product page or ask, but generally speaking, it's supposed to be the cord length. There is no such thing as a set of magic loops. What you would want to do is get a set of circulars that's 47 inch in length or longer. 36 inch length I think sometimes works, but I prefer to work in a 47 inch or a 60 inch length set of circular knitting needles for working magic loop in the round. And what's great about having that size is that you can make an afghan, you can make a super big shawl, you can make lots of bigger things with it too. Using circulars for working in rows is great too, because instead of having to hold up all the stitches on straight needles, having those stitches on the cord takes the weight off of your wrists. I think that's really wonderful too. Okay, so interchangeable needles is a whole different category, Karen. And yes, there are interchangeable needles, and some people love them. And then you have the tips for all the sizes, and they come with several cord lengths. You can even buy additional cord lengths. Maybe they may only do some of the mid-range sizes to do the small and the large. Oh, you can also do super short. There's a smaller needle than 16 even for doing socks, if you wanted to do socks on a singular circular knitting needle. All right, let's try to, let's see if I can get this camera thing to work. So I'm going to take it off this tripod, and if it doesn't work, then we'll just go back to this and we'll try something else. So far, so good. So far, so good. So I won't be able to watch my camera anymore. Is that working? It's not weird, right? Okay. I need to move the balls of yarn out of the way. Let's see if I've got... Is that looking good? Can anybody see what's going on here? Can you see this set of knitting needles? Yeah, and then let's get back to, I'm going to look at something real quick here. Okay. Oh, wow, this is going to work. Wow, this is a game changer for tutorials. Oh my goodness. This is so exciting. So we're going to be making the beginning of this hat, okay? So I'll leave it here for anybody coming in. And so to start with, let's look at the 16-inch circular. So here's our 16-inch circular. So everybody can see me okay? Everybody can see the camera all right? Okay, so I cast on 40 stitches. Oh, next thing I want to show you is stitch markers. So when you're using really big yarn like this, regular stitch markers don't work. So you could either buy fancier stitch markers to fit around this needle, because like look at the regular size isn't going to fit on there. You could either make a stitch marker out of just a scrap piece of yarn, just tie it in a knot so it's a loop, or what I like to do is just mark that first stitch. And as I see this go around, I'll know that when I come to it, I'm at the beginning of the round, and to switch to the instructions for the next round, okay? So I cast on with long tail cast on. First thing I want to do is make sure that my stitches aren't twisted. So can you see here, if you follow the live stitch, let me get some more light in here. If you follow the live stitch around, and then you follow the cast on edge around, this is twisted right now. So I'm going to move this around like this to try to get all my stitches even. And the first thing, and what I like to do is place that cast on edge to the underside to the inside, and my live stitches on the outside. This is quite twisted. Good. This makes it for a good example. Okay, so we've got all of our live stitches on top now and the cast on underneath. Nothing's twisted anymore, so that's where we want to begin. And we're going to start by knitting the first round of the pattern, which is knit 2, purl 2. And so I want to get all my stitches close, and we'll knit 2 with yarn in back, and then purl 2 with yarn in front. And does anybody have any questions about this particular technique? We will do this for both the other techniques. And if we go late today, so what? We're doing a great technique. So I really want to show you that you can do this hat in any of these ways. It starts with a, this is a ribbing round. This is knit 2, purl 2. Now, because I'm talking, we'll see if I make any mistakes. Hi, Carrie. Good morning. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Perono. And hello to anybody I missed. Knit 2, purl 2. I really like this color too. This color is called Night Sky. The color of this light mauve one that I just love. I love that color. I've always loved that color. That's called Wisteria. And this beautiful red is called Dark Cherry. Has anybody here knit hats with any of these techniques before? Have you knit hats in the round on a 16-inch circular? Have you knit a hat on double point needles? Have you knit a hat with magic loop with a long set of knitting needles? And other question is, has anybody knit a mock cable or a faux cable? You don't need a cable needle to make this super simple cable looking stitch pattern that's not a cable at all. And this is a pattern called the Nightingale pattern that you can find on my website, named after those super adorable birds that sing the prettiest songs. I miss the nightingales that I used to enjoy at my old house, and I recently heard them at my mom's house, and I had forgotten all about them until I heard them there, and that's when I remembered how much I loved them. Okay, I must have made a mistake along the way, or no? Yeah, I must have made a mistake along the way. Okay, so we're ready to start the next round here, and first 2 stitches of the next round, I always pull my stitches a little tight so that I can make that join nice and seamless. I must have made a mistake somewhere between my knit 2, purl 2, but that's okay because we're going to move on to the next hat now. So as you can see, really easy to do on a circular that's the right size for the circumference that you're making and the right size for the number of stitches. This is 40 stitches with a 2 stitch to the inch gauge, so we're making a 20-inch hat on 16-inch circulars, and I got to tell you, it is an absolute delight to knit with the right size circulars. Now, if you don't have the right size circulars, it can also be a nightmare. And that's why I'm going to show you some other alternatives. My yarn's caught on the tripod. Hold on a second. There we go. So we'll move that one off to the side. Next up, we've got our double points here. Okay, so what I did was I cast them on. In fact, I should probably take these off so I can show you how you add them to. All right, let's move them all back to 1. So if I had just started, I put them on properly for the photo to show everybody what I'd be doing today, but I really want to show you how you get to this point. If you are new to double point needles, please listen to my advice. Start with wood or bamboo. Do not start with metal or plastic. They are too slippery, and there is a learning curve to learning how to use double point needles. And yes, it looks scary, but it's not. I promise you it's not too scary, but there is a learning curve to it, and using the table is your friend when you're starting to use double points. But I want to get them back onto one needle, like as if I had cast on all 40 stitches at once. Okay, let's get them back on here. So I'm just backing out my work that I did before when I was setting up today. Okay, so let's pretend we cast on our 40 stitches onto one set of double points. What I like to do is not separate them onto my other needles from the last stitch here where the tail is. I like to go back to the first stitch at the beginning here and then place my stitches on the different needles. Now I've got 40 stitches, so I'm going to put 10 stitches on each of these 4 needles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm going to make a point to slide them to the center of the needle so they're not close to the edge. When they're close to the edge, they can fall off, and we don't want to do that. Yeah, Karen, there's lots of ways to join in the round. That's one of them. You can also, if you just are mindful of pulling a little tight on the first couple of stitches at the beginning of the first couple of rounds, that usually does the trick for me. I make a point to make my tension a little tighter for a couple of stitches at the beginning of each round, and that always works for me. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I did one too many, so I'll put that one back over there. Okay, and then I'm going to slide these to the middle and set it down. Using the table as another set of hands is really great for this technique too. And then we'll do 10 stitches onto this needle. Move them to the middle. And then we've got our 10 stitches on that first needle. So now, again, we're going to want to pay attention here and try to make sure that our stitches are not twisted. Okay? So I'm going to look for my live stitches to be in the same direction and for my cast on edge to be in the same direction. So at the moment, I'm looking at the live stitches to the outside and the cast on edge to the inside. Can you recognize the difference between the live stitch and the cast on edge? I'll pause for a minute to see if anybody has questions about that. Okay, I used long tail cast on, so my tails and my working yarn are going to be on the last stitch, not at the first stitch. And so now I've got my working yarn here, that's the last stitch, and I want to knit the first stitch here. So I'm going to insert my knitting needle into the first stitch and grab my working yarn, not my tail yarn. And knit 2, purl 2 around. See how I'm using the table to balance my knitting needles? I think that as a beginner especially, it's really important to try to find a stable place, and using the table has always been my favorite way of getting started on knitting in the round with double point needles. Oh, you know what? I didn't mark my first stitch with a stitch marker either. And that's really important to do here when knitting in the round on double points as well. We want to mark that first stitch so we don't forget where the beginning and the end of the rounds are. Okay, so we did a knit 2, then we come to our next needle. So now that we knit those stitches, I'm going to try to place them back in the center of the needle so that they don't slide off. and then I come to my next needle and I will slide them over to the edge so that I can work them. We're ready to purl now, so we'll move the yarn in front. And we're still doing the first round of this pattern, which is knit 2, purl 2. Can you hear the needles clicking on the table? I am intentionally letting those needles click on the table because I want to use the table for leverage and stability while I'm trying to wrangle these 4 needles at the same time. And just like when you're learning anything new, take your time, take your time. There is no race. Okay, so I finished the second needle, move those stitches back to the center of the needle, and then I'll turn my work, and I'm ready to start the third needle now. Nope, there's no benefit to knitting with double points rather than circulars. It's a preference. It's just a preference. Now, I'm sure, as a beginner, I'm sure that when you get more into detailed work, there are people that will say there are certain benefits to each one. But if you're new to knitting in the round, whichever of these techniques speaks to you, whichever one looks more interesting, that's where I would start. And even though this one is has probably the highest learning curve for getting comfortable with the needles, I will say that you really can get the hang of it, and it's very simple to do once you get going. And honestly, the first couple of rounds of anything are the most challenging, right? So we'll move those back to the middle of the needle again, and we're ready. This needle, we're going to start with a purl, so move the yarn to the front of the work. All right, I see a stitch marker. That means we've come to the beginning of our work now. All right, so we'll slide those stitches back to the center of that needle as well. And then we also want to set our work down, make sure everything's in the same direction. Everything looks good, so then we'd get ready to start. Joan, on this particular one, because I moved, that's a great question, Joan, because I moved my cast on stitches on and off the double points, I put them back on in the wrong position. So in order to knit them properly, I had to knit them in the wrong way. I'll show you just to get them back in position. It's because of how many times I moved the stitches off the needle. Okay. But if you don't move your stitches, no, then you wouldn't want to. My stitches were in the wrong position, and that's why I knit them in the back loop. It wasn't because I should be knitting in the back loop. Okay, let's get this back to looking normal for a second. Again, I set this up with a few of the steps because I wanted to photograph it in the magic loop position. But okay, so we have a really long knitting needle here. However, and it's way too long to knit in the round, right? Imagine trying to knit this in the round. You would never be able, here, let's do an example. You would never, ever be able to stretch these stitches out enough to knit this hat in the round. And can you see how awful that looks already? Now imagine trying to slide these around. Not gonna happen, okay? So I'm gonna slide them back up to the front now. We're not going to try to move these around 47 inches. We're trying to make a 20-inch hat, not a 47-inch hat. So I've got 40 stitches cast on, just like the other 2 hats that I showed you today, and just like I did on this one here. And what we want to do is find our midpoint. So we're going to count across, so we have 20 stitches on either side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so then we find our midpoint. and we want to slide our stitches so that they're on either side. Okay. All right, looking more like a hat circumference already, right? So we've got our stitches positioned, and it's like we're pretending like we've got the right size, even though we have all this cord here. So, and this is only the first. This is only the beginning. We're just getting started here. Okay. Also, you want to make sure your stitches aren't twisted. Okay. Now, which needle goes in the front and which goes in the back depends on which cast on technique you're using. If your cast on technique is like a knit cast on and your working yarn is at your last stitch worked, then you want it in front. This is long tail cast on, which means my working yarn and my tail are on the first stitch, or on the last stitch rather, so you want that in back. So we've got this huge long cord over here. What we're going to do now with our work, we're going to knit first, so I want the yarn to be over this needle. I want the tail sticking straight down, and I want the yarn over the needle. Then I'm going to slide these stitches out, and I want to get half of that extra cord on this side and half of that extra cord on this side to knit that first stitch. So can you see how we've got cord on both sides? And I also want to grab a stitch marker, because you're still going to want to know where each, if you're doing it all in stockinette, no, not so important. But if you're doing different stitch patterns on each round, then it becomes really important to mark your first stitch, right? Okay, so we've got a loop on each side. We're going to knit. So we'll knit the first half of the stitches. So it's going to be knit 2, purl 2, and then and then once I knit through this side, I'll show you how we knit the second half of the round. Okay, so now we've knit the first half of the stitches on this round. And now what we want to do is slide those second half of the stitches back onto their knitting needle. So this is the second half of the round that has not been knit yet. Remember, there's our stitch marker over there in case you get confused. This is the second half of the round. Get those back on the needle, okay? And then the stitches that we just knit, we're going to slide those off the needle so that we have equal amount of cord on each side. Make sure our yarn is on top. Since we're knitting, if we were purling, we'd want the yarn on the bottom, but we want the yarn on top. And then we'll continue on with our knit 2, purl 2 to finish round 1. Whoops. Okay, we're back to our stitch marker. We finished round 1, and we want to we're ready to start round 2. So we want the beginning, the stitches we want to knit next, we want in the front, and we're going to slide those stitches back onto the knitting needle. And I'm going to do the 4 round repeat of this mock cable pattern now that we're set up on these, okay? Notice that there's a little gap there, but I'm going to show you how quickly and easily I close that gap by just being mindful of putting a little extra tension on the first 2 stitches of the next round. Really easy to do. All right, so we want to slide the stitches from the back needle that are just finished knitting, off so we have equal amount of cord on each side, and we're ready to begin round 2. Round 2 for this stitch pattern, whoops, our yarn needs to be on top. Round 2 for this stitch pattern is knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, purl 2. Okay, we're going to put a little extra tension on the first couple of stitches, just like that. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, and purl 2. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. If anybody has any questions, I will try to answer them while I am counting and knitting in my head. Get my yarn out a little bit. So round 2 of this pattern is knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, purl 2. For those of you just joining, I'm showing how to make this mock cable stitch pattern. So if you've never done cables before, you don't need a cable needle for this. It's super easy. So round 1 was knit 2, purl 2, and round 2 is knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, purl 2. Okay, we've finished first half of our round, so we'll get our second half of the stitches back onto our knitting needle. I like to put these back on before I take the other ones off. Okay, make sure my yarn is on top of the needle before I slide the stitches just worked back out, and continue on in my established pattern. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, purl 2. It's only a 4-round repeat. I know we've gone over a little bit today, but I think you're going to really enjoy seeing how this comes together. I mean, already it looks pretty easy, don't you think? Pull some more yarn out of my ball, though. There, that'll give me a little bit more. Okay, so back in pattern, I just finished my purl 2, so I know it's knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, purl 2. How's everybody liking the overhead shot tutorial aspect of the show today? I would love to do this more often. And if this is something that you enjoy, would you please kindly tell me in the comments when the show's no longer live today? Let me know what you'd like to see me demonstrate next, and what all would you like to see me do on the show. I love teaching live so much, and I think that this is a wonderful platform for us to do live tutorials, so that not only can I show you in real time what I'm doing, not only can you ask me questions in real time where I can answer them, but guess what else happens when you when you work live? You make mistakes and you have to fix them. So I think it's a wonderful combination of really great ways that I can help teach even more and teach better. Okay, so where are we? We're at the end of the round. That's why I've got the stitch marker there. So I'm going to start my 3rd round now. Okay, 3rd round of this stitch pattern is, let's see, make sure the yarn's on top. 3rd round of this pattern is knit 3, purl 2. So we'll knit the knit stitch, knit the yarn over, knit the knit stitch, and then purl the 2 purl stitches. Uh-oh, that's baby. No, honey, you can't type on the... Bjorn's typing in the chat. Sorry, guys. Oh, he didn't hit enter. His head was just on one button and it was going crazy. Okay, so knit the knit stitch, knit the yarn over, knit the next knit stitch. Where'd the hat go? I moved everything to fix the computer. Oh, there it is. Okay, then purl the 2 purl stitches. And we'll repeat this all the way around. Oh, here's a funky thing that comes up sometimes. I got an extra loop on this side needle, so I got to slide all my stitches back up properly. So it was knit 3, purl 2, knit 3, and this is the first half of round 3. Okay, so there's the first half of our stitches for round 3. We'll move that to the back, get the second half of our stitches for round 3 back on the needle. Make sure our yarn is over the needle in the back because we're going to knit. Pull those stitches back off the needle. We have equal amount of cord on both sides, and we'll continue on in our pattern repeat for round 3, which is knit 3, purl 2. And then we only have one more round for this pattern, so I would like to go a little long just so I can show you. And if you'd like, we can I can do my homework to get further along on the hat today, and then maybe tomorrow morning I can show you how to do the crown decreases and finish this hat, because it really has I did the decreases in pattern, and isn't that beautiful how the crown of the hat matches the pattern? So tomorrow we can do that if you'd like. What I'm going to show you today is the 4-round repeat, which means that once I show you these 4 rounds, you could actually do the homework today as well and make the hat the length you want it, and then tomorrow together we can do the crown together. Seriously, it takes about an hour to do this, maybe 2 if you're slower. It's not a slow pattern at all. It's very, very fast. I'm using a number 6 super bulky weight yarn with 10mm knitting needles. I just love how these stitches pop with that thicker, chunky yarn. And it's so cozy and warm. And still no animal fiber, so it's still allergen, it's hypoallergenic as well. Okay, so we finished round 3. We're ready for the last round, and this is the one that has a fancier stitch in it that maybe you've never seen before. Maybe you have. It's okay. It's all right. Okay, we've got all our stitches, all of our front stitches on the needle. Got the yarn over the back needle so I can slide those stitches out, get my cord equal on both sides. And then this is the 4th and final round of the repeat. It starts with slip the first stitch, knit the next 2 stitches, pick up that slip stitch, pull it up and over the second stitches and off the needle. Then move the yarn in the front to purl the next 2 stitches. We'll do that again. Move the yarn to the back, slip the first stitch, knit the next 2, pick up the slip stitch, pull it up and over the 2 knit stitches and off the needle. And it is that slip stitch that's moved over the other 2 stitches that creates that curve. That's what creates the curve to make this look like it's cabled, even though it isn't. Isn't that so cool and easy? So I'll continue this round, and then we will and then I'll set the hat down so you can see the stitch. See, this is what I was talking about. If you're not careful, your cord can come out like that. This is still the front loop and the first half, or the front needle, and it's still the first half of the stitches. Uh-oh, baby Bjorn's coming closer. My little sugar. Is he on camera now? He says, I don't care what kind of camera you use. I still want my beauty shots. Whoops. I was too busy talking to baby Bjorn and made a mistake. All right, well, here's a good example, though, of making a mistake and backing out of your work. So So I'm going to back out of those 3 knit stitches because I was supposed to slip the first one, knit the next 2, pick up that slip stitch over those 2 knit stitches and off the needle. Remember, we added an increase 2 rounds below. We added a yarn over, which we didn't need for this, and that yarn over is now getting taken back out by popping off the slip stitch. So we'll slip 1, knit 2, pick up the slip stitch, pass it up and over those 2 stitches and off the needle, move the yarn to the front, 2 purl 2. Oh, if only baby Bjorn could talk to us, wouldn't that be special? Can you see him though? He's sitting, he's right here. There he is, my little sugar. My little sugar wooger, I love you. Okay, so now we'll pull the front stitches back onto the needle to complete the second half of round 4. Make sure our yarn is over the back needle since we're going to knit. And then, oh, this would be beautiful for a baby blanket, Donna. Absolutely. This yarn would be phenomenal for a baby blanket too. It's so squishy. Can you see how thick and squishy this is? Like, oh. It's beautiful. What do you think, Bjorn? Would it fit on you? Maybe, maybe not. I think it fits Mama. It doesn't fit you. Okay, so we're back to our pattern. It's slipped the first stitch. Uh-oh, baby Bjorn wants to play with the yarn now. Knit the next 2. Pick up the slip stitch up and over the 2 knit stitches and pass it off. Sometimes he likes the yarn to slide between his toes. He likes to give me extra tension, I guess. Extra yarn tensioning. Oh, I kind of have a little bit of a, too much of my yarn came out from the center, so I'm going to have to fuss with this for a second. No big deal though. There we go. Okay, baby Bjorn, you can tension the yarn again, sweetheart. You ready? You put it in your toes. Put it in your toes and then you help Mama. That's a good boy. Isn't baby Bjorn doing such a good job? He likes just watching the yarn go by too. Okay, slip 1, knit 2, pass the slip stitch up and over, yarn in front, purl 2. Yes, he likes to be included. Yarn in back, slip the first stitch, knit the next 2, pick up the slip stitch, pull it up and over this. Did you notice how I'm putting tension on my yarn? I like to put tension on my yarn when I pull that slip stitch up and over so that this stitch stays on and doesn't fall off with it. Purl 2. Okay, and we have now completed the full repeat for this pattern. Another thing that you might want to consider, because this is based on a rib stitch, even just 1 repeat of those 4 rounds would be a really pretty like ribbing detail, and then you could go on to either reverse stockinette or stockinette for the body of the hat. That would be a nice idea too. But if you continue on, you would just want to continue on in pattern until your hat gets around, until it gets around 8 inches, which is about here, and then you would follow. So you just want to repeat rounds 1 through 4 until you got the tube, the the walls of the hat the size you want, and then we will do the crown decreases tomorrow. Let's see if I can move the camera back to the tripod. Oh, there's a nice view of my palm. Sorry. See, I think the lighting's better when I pull this down. All right. Look at, we have a hat. Can you see that we actually have a hat on this super long set of knitting needles? It is magic, isn't it? I see why they call it magic loop. It's magic. And then I want to show you that crown again. How pretty is the crown? I love it when a stitch pattern can can blend into the crown like that. So if you want, the pattern is not difficult. If you want to continue on and do this on your own, the pattern is available now. The pattern is on my website. You can find, it also comes in 3 sizes, and you could easily modify that even further. But tomorrow I will show you how to do the decreases for the crown and show you how to finish off the hat too. That's great, Allison. What do you think, baby Bjorn? Was this fun? Was this so fun? Does anybody have any questions? Does what fit GoPros? Does this? You'll have to look at the manufacturer's product page. It is, Judy has shared it. You'll have to look there. It works for my iPhone, but you'll have to see what devices it works, and maybe it comes with different attachments here. I'm sure it's available. I'm sure it is. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes, my baby. There's my baby Bjorn. Everybody misspells on live chat. It's okay, Allison. Sometimes I'm good at reading typos, sometimes I'm not. Sparkling water with lime today, yum. I really wanted to do water with ginger and lemon like yesterday. I'll probably still do that too. Wonderful, that's great, Sharon. You'll love it. Does anybody have any other questions? Wait and see if there's any questions. Great question, Mary. Yes, this pattern would work with smaller needles and thinner yarn. You just need to figure out the cast on for the gauge. So I'm just going to throw some numbers out there. If you're this, I'm doing the gauge for this hat is 2 stitches to the inch, and it's a 4-stitch multiple, and I'm making a 20-inch hat. So for me, that was to cast on 40 stitches at that gauge. Let's double it. I would guess that if you're using worsted weight yarn, you could probably get a 4-stitch to the inch gauge. 4 stitches to the inch times a 20-inch hat would be an 80 stitch cast on. But those are all even numbers. Let's say that you get, I'm going to pull out my calculator. Let's say you're getting 3.5 stitches to the inch, 3.5 times 20 inches. That would give you a cast on of 70 stitches. However, this is a 4-stitch multiple in the stitch pattern. So the next number up is what I would go with, or the past number down. So either 68 or 72 would be a multiple of 4. Does that make sense? Does anybody want me to explain that further? Maybe I'll have, as soon as I have my new and improved dry erase board, we can do the math for that maybe one day next week. I don't think it'll be here by, what's today? It's coming tomorrow, so it won't be here in time for the show in the morning. Wonderful. Thank you, Carla. Well, Diane, that's assuming, I'm assuming that you get 4 stitches to the inch, and then 3 stitches to the, or maybe 5 stitches to the inch for number 3 yarn. It depends on your gauge. It always depends on your gauge. Wonderful, Mary. Yeah, you could absolutely do this in worsted weight yarn. You would just want to adjust your cast on number of stitches for your gauge, for your size of the hat you're making, and making sure that it fits the stitch multiple. This is a 4-stitch repeat, so once you do the math, figuring out your gauge and your circumference, wherever that lies within the multiple, you would either be right on the money, or you'd have to go up or down with a couple of stitches. Wonderful. That's a great question, though. I'm glad I could explain that, because yes, you could fix this for any gauge yarn. Yes. And gosh, this hat would be so pretty in any weight yarn too. It's so pretty. I think it's really unisex also, although it does look feminine in this beautiful light mauve, which I love this color. I do think that it could be a masculine looking hat in one of the other more neutral colors as well. All right, well, I don't see any other questions, so thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes with baby Bjorn and me. I hope you enjoyed this different style of teaching today. If you did, please let me know. Leave a comment and let me know if you enjoyed this style of teaching today. Let me know what other things you'd like me to teach live, and let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.